Hello again everybody, and welcome back to Casterton Vintage. Today we've got the second part of the plough training day. If you haven't seen part one, now would be a good time to go back and take a look at it. In part two we're going to look at the best way to finish your plot. If it's something you've been struggling with, this is a must-see video. Make sure you watch it right to the end. And don't forget, click the like button, and if you subscribe, you'll know when we launch the next video. Before we get into the finishes, let's just have a quick look back at how some people got on with their starts. The demo plots are now getting much closer to a finish. Dan's been struggling since he turned to his neighbour. When he measured across, he was 2.5 furrows out of parallel. You'd normally plan to get rid of all that error in the first 2 passes down that side. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for Dan. 2.5 furrows is a big bit, and he's been struggling ever since to try and fix it. And you can see it in the front furrow here. It's still too wide. The finish is judged on the last 8 furrows, and the vintage trowel is now down to that point. Each one of these furrows is a slightly different size, so you have to think about it and know exactly what you're doing. You need to be at your working depth right up to that point, but then you're allowed to start to shallow off. Different ploughmen tend to shallow by different amounts, and also you can change it based on the soil conditions on the day. You won't want to get too shallow when it's sandy like this, or the plough will run away and push the furrow wall over. We'll join this little chap and we'll listen to Richard, who's explaining exactly how he approaches it.
So I've got 55 left, so I'll go up here and check off my start. That'll leave 35. I should turn around and come down, put that wheel up my furrow wall and bring the furrow and half. So then leaving 2018 is probably a 47, which will be only be wheel that side. Run round empty, pull the one off, then turn around and finish. It'll be more obvious when I do it.
So I couldn't get close enough for good audio there, so I'll repeat what Richard was saying. He's got 55 inches left, so that's 5.5 furrows. You definitely don't want to be over 6 furrows, otherwise you're in trouble, but your target is 6 or a little bit below. 5.5's probably just a little bit low in these conditions. So what he'll do now is take 2 furrows off, and that will leave him 35 inches. This run is very important because you're going to use that furrow wall for the rest of the finish. It needs to be dead straight and you need to shallow off a little bit. When he turns round at the end, he'll put his left wheel up against the furrow wall he's about to produce. And then he'll take about a furrow and a half up to 2 furrows and plough them into the space where the wheel's going to run in the future. So you need plenty of soil in that pass. This will leave just probably an inch under 2 furrows, and he'll run light to the other end, and then he'll bring 1 more furrow back, and that will be a shallow one. Then he'll turn around at the end where we are now and set up and produce the finish. Let's see how he gets on. Richard will explain most of this again, and I managed to get the camera a little bit closer this time so you'll be able to hear. So we're now at the opposite end of the field with 35 inches left. We're going to take 15 off there, probably 16, and leave just a fraction under 2 furrows left. Let's listen to Richard explain.
Right, tell me I've got 35. 37 would have perhaps been better because effectively I'm going to have just over half a furrow under this wheel now. Just go down here now with a sort of bit over half a furrow, full furrow, then run round empty and just pull a single one off and then turn around and finish at the bottom. Move the wheel right in and hopefully it won't bust it down. If it starts busting it down I shall move it right out and put it in the furrow bottom this time. But hopefully I'll be able to avoid doing that. You never ever run on your own, your own work, and I should be driving with that wheel now, not this side, but this down. Any questions? How deep are you at this point? Well, I don't tend to shallow out too much, just a turn or two. You don't really want to be able to see it being a lot shallow. It wants to be a touch shallow. So I've come out 2 turns, I think, from full ploughing, that's about all. I should judge this as I go in, I should probably come out again a bit more. I mean, in the world style class, that furrow there is a big flag. I would rather flag that because that was the left where this wheel is, even higher up. Because it is a fault to have a real deep wheel mark. And the only way you can stop that is to land underneath and take the plough very deep. It shouldn't be too bad today because I've got some bits for it.
So I hope you could hear that okay. Richard was basically explaining about the way to get a shallow wheel mark is 1, not to plough the ground that's underneath the wheel mark, and 2, to make sure you've got enough in the front furrow on this pass to push some soil where the wheel's going to run again next time down. A deep wheel mark is a fault and it will cost you points. The other thing you need to do is make sure this run is shallow enough so you don't end up with a big furrow right next to the wheel mark. You'll notice that the front furrow here isn't really ploughing enough soil, which is why Richard was saying he could have done with more width. If this furrow's low, then you're going to end up with a deep wheel mark. It really needs to be higher than your normal ploughing. If we quickly jump across to the classic plot, you can see that Ray's got a little bit more soil in the front furrow.
And that's about 19 inches, something like that. Just slightly under 2 furrows in here for the here. And obviously you want to be a little bit shallower, because you want next one's going to be very shallow, so it's bringing you finishing at a nice angle rather than just a step. And it is preferable to get that wheel mark filled back in.
Staying with the classic, you can see how we're taking off 1 furrow shallow here before making the finish, and the wheel's running down the slightly higher front furrow from the previous pass. And now we're back to vintage mounted, where Richard's about to take off that single shallow furrow. And we're ready now to make the final run. You'll notice that the land wheel has been pulled out so it runs in the tractor wheel mark, and you can't see it here, but you've also got to put your left hand disc on, otherwise your disc arm will pull the furrow in. Now we'll watch the vintage trowel go through the same process. Just having a quick measure, there should be 3.5 to 4 furrows here. If it's more than 4, the tractor won't go down. On the next run we're driving by the left wheel and we should be taking off 1.5 to 2 furrows. Watch the land wheel very carefully on the plough. On very light soils like this, it can be quite difficult to make sure it doesn't fall in the furrow. That would be a complete disaster. We're just having a quick measure to make sure we've got our 19 to 20 inches.
Yeah, I know. Questions of what we're trying to do.
It looks like Dan's only got 30 inches here. If you remember, Richard was complaining because he'd only got 35. So 30 is not ideal. He's still finding a little bit of soil to push under the wheel mark, but he's likely to have a deep wheel mark when he finishes. And now we've run light to the other end and we're just going to take off one shallow single furrow in preparation for the finish.
We've discussed it up there about the length you've got to get in.
Do you not think it would have been better to take it one off?
You should have took one off here, yeah. Everyone mind your back.
They're just discussing the problem of only having 3 furrows left on the previous run. Ideally, Dan should have taken off a single furrow a little bit further out, just perhaps the other side of where the wheel is. This would have meant he had a full 4 furrows left and he'd have been able to put a big furrow under the tractor wheeling. It's worth mentioning here that you'll notice the plough land wheel is in the furrow. Therefore your depth control is not as it's been for the rest of the plot. Depending on the type of plough lift mechanism you're using, you have to compensate for this in different ways.
A bit too shallow for
It's too deep for it. You should come down from the... No, look at my side, no, on this side, on this side. It's too deep for it.
And so we come to the finish. Notice that Dan's added his left hand disc. You can see the right hand disc hanging on the back of the plough. His lamb wheel's not adjustable for width, so we can't pull that out into the wheel mark.
Has anyone got any questions?
You should be able to see from this that the soil in the rear furrow is the remains of the soil from the shallow pass in the opposite direction. So if you go too deep on the previous run, you've got nothing left for the rear furrow on this pass, or you end up with a very deep finish. Let's see if we can hear what the experts have got to say about it.
What do you think, anyway? There we are. Oh, it's going to go too deep. I was going to have a deep finish, but this all results to that them two furrows earlier on being too deep. Now it's got to get deep to get soil.
Is that what you were saying at the other end?
Yeah, that was too deep on this front here. It was too deep, and that was why we've got to do the finish. It all stands from it. Now we've got to go deep to get soil. And the outcome's got to keep soil like that. No, it's too deep. It's got to come down. About 8
So, as Dan finishes his plot, we'll draw our video to a close. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, don't forget to click the thumbs up button. We'll see you again next week with something different.